Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Immersion Night. We may have a few people struggling in, but I want to be respectful of your time. It's a cold, dark night in December, and it's nice to be able to get back home where it's warm. So thank you for joining us for our Dual Language Immersion Information Night. My name is Laura Stebner, and I am the Director of Elementary Instruction for District 742. And I'm going to kind of walk you through the presentation tonight, but you're also going to hear from a couple of other folks who can give that immersion perspective. So we have Summer here, who is our kindergarten Chinese immersion teacher at Madison. And we've got a teacher from Clearview who is stuck in traffic but is on her way. And we'll have a teacher from Westwood joining us as well. Westwood has a family night, so she's doing double duty, but she'll be here as well to give that perspective. And then I'll introduce a few parents a little bit later who are going to just share a little bit of testimonial on how the immersion program has gone for their children, and to give you an opportunity to ask any parent questions that you have, because the parent perspective is just a little bit different. But I'm going to go ahead and walk us through just an overview of the immersion programs here in District 742 and a little bit of background. I love this quote. Hopefully you saw it as you came in. Choosing immersion has been hands down one of the best decisions we've made for our daughter. We hear that over and over and over again from our families that choose immersion. I myself had students in the Spanish immersion program here in District 742, and I know firsthand the difference that it makes for students and the absolutely incredible experience that it is. I remember I had taught in a different district when my oldest child started in immersion, and I was talking to my principal at my school, and I was telling him, I'm trying to decide what's the best plan for my kindergartner. This is such a big decision. And I was thinking maybe I should bring him to my school, and I remember my principal saying to me, if you had the opportunity to do language immersion, you'd be crazy not to do it. And so that really stuck with me, and I never regretted it. So let's go ahead and just dive into a little bit about the benefits of immersion and a little background and what our immersion programming looks like. So this is just a quote that says, again and again, researchers have found bilingualism is an experience that shapes our brain for a lifetime. And so one of the greatest things for you to know about immersion programming is the bilingual brain is different. The bilingual brain has a whole different way that it develops, and that's something that really is just such a gift to be able to give your child. And we see this time and again through research that the bilingual brain is more creative, is more able to solve problems, and so there's so many benefits beyond just learning that additional language. In District 742, we have this mission that we always like to share with any of our families. We share it at the beginning of our meetings. We really believe deeply in our mission. And what our mission is to create a safe and caring climate and culture in which we prepare, engage, educate, empower, and inspire all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. And immersion in education really creates that environment that prepares learners to meet the district mission. One of the greatest things that it does is talks about today's and tomorrow's society. We live in a global world. We live in a world where students are interacting with all different kinds of people, and the opportunity to have another language or to learn deeply about another culture is just something that is such a preparation for students to be able to go out into the real world and really thrive in this multicultural world we live in. So just to understand a little bit about dual language immersion, what we want to share with you is that we do have full day programming that begins in kindergarten. So for you as a kindergarten parent, if you're choosing immersion for your child, the child is going to be coming into full day programming where they're going to be accessing that language for the majority of their instructional day right from the start. We also want parents to know that we do teach the Minnesota State Standards in math, science, social studies, and language arts through that immersion language. So students are still getting access to the same content that the state of Minnesota lays out for us as educators, but they get that content through the language that you choose, whether that be Chinese or Spanish. The students are taught that content in that target language. learn the content and the language at the same time. So as they're learning to count, they're learning how to say those numbers in Spanish or Chinese. As they're learning to read, they're learning to read in Spanish or Chinese. And so students are learning all of those pieces together. It's really woven together. It's not a separate standalone time where we say, now it's time to learn Spanish. We're going to stop everything and do our Spanish instruction. It's very much woven together throughout the day. And it's free, and it's available for kids who speak any language. Sometimes we'll get questions, can my student only do Spanish immersion if they're a Spanish-speaking student at home? Absolutely not. Any student can do Spanish immersion or Chinese immersion, regardless of what their home language is. It's really an immersion experience, and so we want to bring students in and give them that gift of language. So we have some goals in our dual language immersion programming. So we want to be really specific with you as parents so you know what are the goals you can expect for a student if you choose this immersion programming. One is developing high levels of proficiency in 2 languages. So as students come in and they learn Spanish and Chinese, we also know that we need to be proficient in English as well. And as students progress through the grade levels, as they get older, we start to add in more and more English instruction. Students do have a small amount of English instruction in kindergarten. We want to make sure that students are getting access to those very important reading skills. When they go to music, Phi Ed, and art, they're going to be getting that in English. But throughout the day, the majority is in Spanish or Chinese until the students get to 3rd grade, and then we add in more time for English as the students get older. And that really helps us ensure that the students are proficient in both English and the target language for immersion. Typically what we see is students who choose immersion perform at or above their grade level academically. Often parents can feel a little bit nervous. If I choose Spanish for my child, will my child be behind in English? What we typically see is sometimes at the beginning, students might have more skills in Spanish or Chinese because that's the majority of their instruction. But eventually what we see is that those students catch up and surpass their peers who are only taught in English, whether or not they start in Chinese or in Spanish. We also want to exemplify positive cross-culture attitudes and behaviors. We want children to understand the benefits of knowing about another culture deeply and being able to really have that positive opportunity to engage with another culture. And then demonstrate continuous progress towards becoming bilingual, biliterate, and a global citizen upon graduation. So this isn't just a kindergarten program, this isn't just an elementary program. We really strive to have a holistic program for our students who choose the immersion pathway. So we talked a little bit at the beginning about some of the benefits I've been able to see as a former parent, and I just want to lay out a couple of them more specifically. So one is it enhances academic and linguistic performance in the immersion language and English. So we sort of talked about that already, but what you can expect as an immersion parent is that your child would be having that enhanced academic outcomes in both languages. It physically enhances the brain. They're wired differently. They have this opportunity to really have a unique brain. It does increase career and social opportunities. When you think about the world that we live in, having the opportunity to go into the career and say, I'm bilingual, I'm proficient in multiple languages, only benefits our students, and it expands that worldview and their global competency. In Minnesota, we actually are a leader in dual language immersion. You might just be thinking about your kindergartner right now, but what's great to think about is that we live in a state where there are a lot of immersion programs, and that allows us to partner with other districts who have immersion programs to really create that network, to have lots of places that we can learn from. How can we grow and be better? And you'll see that Minnesota is in that 101 to 200. So we're not quite over 200, but we're that second tier of language immersion programs. And it's just a strong belief in the state of Minnesota that immersion programming is high quality programming, and it's a great opportunity for us to collaborate and partner. We do like to talk to parents about the role of a parent and a guardian if you're choosing immersion programming, because it's a little bit different. If you're sending your child to school, simply for English. The school is spending the whole day teaching your child how to learn in English, but in immersion, we're teaching your child to have those two different languages. So we like to tell parents, reading to your child at home in English is really important. Giving them that opportunity to hear a lot of stories in English, a lot of that complex language in English is important. So one of the best things that you can do as a parent if you choose immersion is read to your child. Support literacy practice. So there's often practice activities that you can do at home in Spanish or Chinese or in English, and supporting both of those really helps your child to grow those deep skills. Of course, ask your kids about what they're learning. Hopefully they don't tell you nothing, but you'll learn that as a parent. That's pretty common. But continuing to ask your child, what is it that you're learning about? Attending those conferences, encouraging play and oral language during play. We want students to be speaking, and when they're speaking, that develops that oral language and vocabulary. I know as a parent, I was really excited about my kids speaking in Spanish, and I was wanting to see a lot of that. And truthfully, it took a while for that to show up at home because they're a little bit shy. My kids were. It's something that they learned in school. But one of my favorite stories was when my youngest was in Spanish immersion. She was writing something and she said, "How do you spell yes?" I think it must be S-I, because in Spanish it's C. And so that really showed me that window into her bilingual brain, that she was really understanding the word C in Spanish means yes in English, and she was sounding it out and really creating that cross-linguistic pathway in her brain. So during play at school, kids might be speaking English, they might be speaking Spanish, they might be speaking a combination of them. Oftentimes, students who are in immersion programming who get together outside of school tend to speak in that target language because that's what they're used to talking to each other at school. So encouraging that during play, and then of course attending those family engagement nights. I'm going to turn it over to Summer because often we have some parents who feel a little bit nervous specifically about Chinese. Spanish has letters that look like English letters, so sometimes parents will say, "Oh, I don't know about this Chinese. Is this too hard for a kindergartner?" So Summer's going to speak to us a little bit about how succeeding in Chinese is easier than you think.
Okay, so I've been teaching for 10 years. So a lot of, especially last year, I heard a lot of parents walking and they see all those Chinese character posters. Just, oh, this is so hard. So hard, that's it, they left. So I want to introduce a little bit about but it's very different because Chinese is not alphabet-based language. So it's a stroke order. So that's, do not, it looks different, oh, it's so hard. So don't give you that thought. So a couple of things I want to talk about, very simple grammar. So in Chinese, we have no verb, no conjunctions, no plural, no gender nouns. So very easy. Most of the clear sentence structure, very similar to English. A lot of sentence would be, because if in Korean and Japanese, a lot of times a lot of their grammar at the end. So they will show their past tense, future tense at the end. Chinese, no, a lot of those are very similar. Like I love you, 我爱你 would be exactly to say 我爱你 the same, I love you. So, and we also have the Chinese pinyin system, so basically it's Chinese phonics. So there's very predictable pronunciation once you learn the basics. I have students in kindergarten, we do not teach pinyin phonics, Chinese phonics, because we don't want to get them confused between the alphabet and the pinyin. But a lot of my students, if they already know letter sound, they are able to at least being able to read around 30% by themselves without anything to be explicitly to talk to them. And another thing is simplified characters. So when we talk about the Chinese, we're talking specifically Mandarin Chinese, not Cantonese Mandarin. So they're because they're simplified characters, so it's a little bit easier when it comes to writing. When I was in school, one of my classmates said in graduate school, so he said, I hate Chinese because it's tone language. Tone is just very stupid. But, they're very consistent once you figure that out. But once you learn, it's just, oh, okay, so I'm able to tell. But first time, maybe a little bit hard. And another thing is Chinese visual memory. So Chinese characters are very, very picture graphic, so make it easier to remember. Also, they said Chinese, they use both your brain to learn the language, but English, you only I think is one left part of the brain. So another thing, the last one I want to talk about is the technology. Right now there are plenty of apps, courses, practice opportunities you can use. I use a lot of the resources online, and that's very helpful. So that's a little bit thing I want to talk about. Yep.
So don't be scared of
Yes,
Chinese.
yes, exactly. Don't be scared.
We also wanted to just share with you a couple of quick videos because I can stand up here and speak to you and you're going to hear my voice again, so it's a little awkward for me to share a video of me talking. But this gives you an opportunity to see students in action, and then we also have a video of some of our students speaking in Chinese as well that are very young, because we want to give you an opportunity to see what does this really look like for our students in practice. So this is just a quick 2-minute video that gives you an overview of our language immersion programs, and you'll get to see some kids in action. Hopefully.
St. Cloud Area School District 742 is proud to offer multiple language immersion programs for our incoming kindergartners to enroll in. Spanish immersion is offered at Clearview and Westwood Elementary Schools and began in St. Cloud Area School District in 2006 and has since grown tremendously. In Spanish immersion, students spend the majority of their instructional time learning in Spanish. Lessons focus on Spanish language acquisition and culture. Every year in the program, students perform in a Spanish immersion concert and share songs in Spanish. In 8th or 9th grade, students have the opportunity to go on a trip to a Spanish-speaking country. This allows students to use the language they have acquired and learn about a culture different from their own. Students in immersion have the opportunity to continue their language learning in high school through Spanish language and AP classes. In 2006, St. Cloud School District founded the Chinese Immersion Program at Madison Elementary. Chinese is spoken by 1/5 of the world's population and is the #1 first spoken language worldwide. The teachers in the Chinese Immersion Program are all native speakers and highly skilled. Students in the Chinese Immersion Program do their learning in Chinese for the majority of the day. In addition to learning the Chinese language, students also learn about Chinese culture and are given the opportunity to learn and appreciate a culture different from their own. Every year, the program holds a Chinese concert and a Chinese New Year celebration to share with the community the enjoyment and achievement of Chinese immersion students. Chinese immersion continues through middle school. Students take a Chinese language arts class as well as social studies taught in Chinese. In high school, students can continue their learning through our Chinese as a world language courses. When students are in 8th or 9th grade, they have the opportunity to take a trip to China or a Chinese-speaking community in the U.S. Regardless of which immersion program model you choose, your child is sure to have an educational experience that will have lasting positive impacts. Thank you for choosing 742.
So we'll talk just a little bit about the models and the timing. And so both Spanish and Chinese, no matter which you pick or no matter which school, for Spanish we have it at 2, are what we call an 80-20 model. What that means is 80% of the day for students is in the target language and 20% of the day is in English. Like I said, the English components of the day are going to be typically phonics instruction in English, music, phys ed, and art, because our music, phys ed, and art teachers don't typically teach Spanish or Chinese. So that is really what you'll see. In kindergarten, you're going to see science taught in Spanish and Chinese, social studies taught in Spanish and Chinese, math taught in Spanish and Chinese, and then, of course, the reading and literacy as well. Just so that you have an idea of the pathway that students follow, is if students choose the Chinese immersion program, Madison Elementary has the Chinese immersion program for kindergarten through 5th grade. That program continues at North Junior High and then on to Apollo, where students can engage in Chinese learning through their whole career. And then for Spanish, we have a north side and a south side path. So on the north side, for students who are choosing Westwood Elementary, they will have their K-5 experience at Westwood. They will transition to Spanish immersion at North and Apollo in 9th, 12th. And on the south side, we do Clearview, South, and then Tech High School. So we have that opportunity on both sides of town for Spanish. Chinese is just on the north side. We do provide transportation, so if you're interested in a language immersion program that's outside your attendance area, the district does provide transportation for students who are choosing immersion programs. We heard a little bit in the video about our trips. Our trips are an amazing experience for students to engage in after they've had this opportunity to be in our language immersion programs, to really be able to go out and see this and have this great opportunity out in another country is something that we just really know is a benefit that we offer for our students. So in grades 6 through 8, social studies and immersion language arts are taught in, sorry, I got ahead of myself. I got onto the trips, but I forgot to talk about what middle school looks like. So for Spanish immersion and Chinese immersion, when students are in 6th through 8th grade, we do transition to less time in the target language, but we do have courses in the language. So in 6th through 8th grade, both social studies and language arts are taught in the immersion language, but students also have a language arts class in English in 6th through 8th grade. So they have a separate Spanish or Chinese course and a separate English course. The capstone trip is offered to 8th and 9th grade, and then in 9th through 12th, we have language arts through AP and PSEO classes for Chinese and Spanish students. Students really also get to learn about another culture, which is a huge benefit. So here you're seeing students engaging in that cultural piece. We do have interns at both of our sites that also help to bring the cultural piece. In Spanish immersion, we have Amity interns who come from Spanish-speaking countries and teach cultural lessons and help out in the classroom. They're native Spanish speakers, so students are able to hear different types of Spanish speaking. And in Chinese, we also have interns that help to bring the culture, and our teachers are all native Chinese speakers and are able to bring that as well. We have a couple of important dates that we want to make sure that you remember because your next step as a parent is registration. And so we have lots of opportunities for you to register. We actually have staff from the Welcome Center here tonight. They're going to wave Welcome Center staff. They do have paper enrollment packets. You can also enroll online, or you can enroll at the school that you are planning to attend. Each school has open house nights, so you can see Clearview, Westwood, and Madison here. And these schools will have these enrollment nights for both English and Spanish, and English and Chinese, but they also highlight the school. So many parents are like, oh, I want to make sure that I go to Westwood or I go to Madison and really see how that feels. And so this is an opportunity for you to have that full picture of kindergarten enrollment. And you're also able to enroll in immersion at those nights as well. We do have an application deadline for immersion, which is March 14th. And that's where we need to make sure that we have the staffing in place to support our programs. So we encourage any families who are interested in immersion to enroll early so that you are able to really get that spot in the immersion programming. March 14th is that deadline. If we don't fill by March 14th, then if there's anyone on the wait list, we do another round of reviewing applications and then let families know if they have been, if they've secured a spot in immersion. You are able to enroll on the website, like I said. We are also offering tour opportunities. Clearview's tour dates have passed, but if you're sitting in the audience thinking, like, this all sounds great, but what does this actually look like in a classroom? We do have the QR codes here. You're able to scan the QR code and we will get you an appointment. This is an opportunity for just a quick 15 to 20 minute opportunity to go into the classroom, to see what immersion looks like, to be able to see what the kids are doing. And so we highly encourage families who are curious about seeing this in action to sign up for our tours. They are next week. Westwood does offer 2 dates, the 10th and the 12th, and Madison is offering dates on the 10th. If you're really interested in a tour and those days don't work for you, we encourage you to definitely come talk to me, reach out to us. We want to make sure that you have those opportunities, and we know that those are short windows and may not work for everyone. We have some parents in the space that are going to do a little bit of testimonials for us. So we'll start with Spanish and then we'll go to Chinese. So for Spanish, we have John Bruns and Marita Schmitz. Marita is a kindergarten teacher and also a parent in the immersion program. I'm going to have them come up and just talk from that parent perspective about what immersion has been like for them, what they've seen for their children, and they're also very willing to answer any parent questions that you might have because it's a big choice, but it's an amazing choice. So I'll turn it over to John and Marita.
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I know it's a big decision to kind of look at. So I have 3 kids who are in the immersion program. We've got an 8th grader, a 6th grader, and then a 4th grader as well. So 8th grader and 6th grader at South Junior High. and then fourth grader is at Clearview. And in full disclosure, I work at Clearview as well too. I was in-house sub there for a little while, and I work kind of in a behavior support role, but Marie works there as well too. So get to kind of wear both of those hats. I remember when we were deciding on what to do with our kids from a kindergarten standpoint and looking at the options that we had available, it was kind of that question of, we feel like this is such a good opportunity, like Laura talked about a little bit. And I think for us, really the selling point on giving it a try was, this is something that if we're interested, if we have any sort of interest in it at all, we have to start kind of right away. You can't really kind of say, oh, now my kid is in third grade and I would like them to do immersion, because obviously they're behind. You can always transition out if you feel like it's not the right fit. But we started with our oldest now, who's in 8th grade, and she just really, really enjoyed it, and we've had great success with all of our other ones as well too. It's such a cool opportunity for them. And I think one of the not even hang-ups, hesitations for us actually, we live in St. Joe, which is on the kind of the far west side of the St. Cloud School District. And when our oldest started, the immersion program was only at Clearview. And so that's on the far east side of the district. And so we were thinking like, well, this is kind of a trek for them to kind of get to school. The busing is a great option. We were kind of thinking, oh, maybe we could drive them in the morning, but our youngest said, she's like, I'll take the bus. It's going to be an early morning or whatever. It was really cool. I was telling her this actually at dinner. I was like, I'm going to talk about you a little bit tonight. There was a 5th grader who kind of took her under her wing, who kind of made sure that she got where she needed to go. And then we were hearing about this bus buddy that she had, this 5th grader who she kind of was able to make this connection with. And then, kind of watch her kind of go on through older grades as she got older as well too. So our 8th grader, now that she is at South, she will have the opportunity to go on the capstone trip to Ecuador this spring. So she's been doing a lot of fundraising for that and different activities for that, so she's really excited to do that. Laura talked about the Amity interns as well too, that are come as part of the program for Spanish, and they actually live with host families, and we have actually been able to host a couple of those. So we had a gentleman from Colombia who lived with us, and then we had a woman from Spain who lived with us for a year, and then we've also been aunt and uncle families as well too. And we are actually, as a family, planning on taking a trip to Spain this coming June, so that we'll hopefully have a chance to reconnect with some of those teaching interns that we've had that chance to connect with over the years and stuff. So it's a really cool program. I think it's just something that is great that it's able to be offered here, and it's fun to see how the kids pick that up at such an early age. Like I took Spanish in high school and college a little bit, but when you learn it that way, it just doesn't resonate from a foundational standpoint. So to see my kids picking up on some of those things, and to see my very Scandinavian-looking children as they're speaking, and people saying they have very natural accents because of how early they've learned it and how early they've been able to kind of get some of that foundational knowledge down there as well. Sorry, go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, no worries. You had some really great ideas there. So I've been teaching for the immersion program for around 14 years. So I just was waiting for the day. I was super excited for my kids to participate in the program, and having kids in the program has made me love it even more. There are so many benefits of having a kid in the program. I was making some notes because I was just like, they come home from school, and like the things that they wonder about, the things that they come home having learned, it's just like their world doubles. Like they come home and they're like, well, how do you say this in Spanish? Like, I wonder what they do for bedtime in Peru. Like they're just like, they think so much more about the world in a way that I just didn't when I was that age. So it's really cool to see what they're learning and how that impacts all the parts of their life. And so being in the program, we had a Dual Language Institute for the teachers this summer, and if you meet the immersion teachers, we talked about all the benefits that come from knowing a different language, and having worked with and having also had the relationship of having students in the school. They're the most compassionate, creative, adventurous. Like you walk into an immersion room and it just feels like something magical is happening, because it's all the fun of a school day, but it's happening in a different language. And so because of that, there's like gesturing and there's singing, and like all the kids have these like chants to remember the grammar. So it's just like, it almost is like being part of a club. Like you go in, you're like, this is a really fun vibe in here. Like there's always someone singing or using their hands, so that's really fun. Additionally, like the sense of community that you can build with the families there is also really special. I think there's a special commitment to choosing immersion, and the families that you get to know along the way are just so awesome too. To see the kids connect, like you're saying, sometimes they speak in other languages. We had like one of their birthday parties like that I had attended, and they were like singing the songs from class and like doing the games in Spanish, and I was like, this is like another day of kindergarten at a birthday party. This is just so fun. So they do take those things, they're curious, they wonder about them, and that's super fun. So as far as like reading, this is also super awesome and magical as well. As I watch this, like I saw it from a school standpoint, but to watch your own kids go through it, it was like last year, for example, my second grader he's a third grader this year, but last year he had gotten like a birthday card, and we have a relative who speaks English and Spanish, and so the card was half in English and half in Spanish, and so he gets through, he's reading in English, and then it switches to Spanish, and his like accent changes like immediately, and the whole like, all of our relatives are like, wow, this is so amazing. Like he's not just reading two languages, like he knows to switch his accent, like he didn't even know, like it just cued immediately. And so how they can learn two languages at the same time is really cool. Like my kindergartner, she would like pick up a book and like read out loud in English, and then she'd like pick up a book in Spanish and read out loud in Spanish, and like the letters are right, and I don't even know how it works, but it's so amazing to watch, and really makes the program so vibrant when you see what they do in school and then also at home. So, and then it just leads to some other really funny moments, especially if you have kids. I've heard from lots of parents that they're like, I don't know about this immersion program. They like talk in the back of the car, and we don't know what they're talking about. It's like you're making like this like team up language if you have more than one kids. My kids came from home, and they're dancing to like the Barbie movie, but like with flamenco action. So it's just like fun things like that. You guys know Spotify Wrapped like just came out. Like we had like Latin pop like all year because they want to listen to all the songs that they're hearing at school, which is really cool because these songs come from all over the world, and they're singing the words, and it's really fun. And then they also just have like really fun aspirations. Like we were at a pool last summer, and my now first grader was telling everyone she was going to move to Spain, like when she grew up, and she was going to eat olives that had like the pit in them, and just like all these like random facts she learned from school. But I just think it's fun that it immerses them in so much more than what we were saying. It's more than just the language, it's the curiosity, it's a sense of adventure that they wonder about, and it's a really fun program to be a part of.
And I think from a parent's perspective, and Laura talked about it with the slides as well too, that the things that you can do to really kind of support, and everybody comes at it from a different perspective of maybe what is their background with a language or not, that they, and I think maybe, from a Chinese perspective, maybe a little bit of overwhelm of, I don't know it at all, and some may say, I've got a little bit of a background in maybe a second language, or can kind of translate that. I think the big piece is that curiosity aspect of like working with them, because it's such a time of growth and learning for them, whether they're just learning a regular kind of kindergarten non-immersion, or they're learning that along with a second language as well too. So kind of just helping them be curious and ask questions and try to grow that. And even if you're not feeling super comfortable about, I don't think the expectation is help them with the reading that you might get, but kind of engage with that so that they understand that it's something that you value and you think is important, and you want them to kind of keep striving for it. Because they're super capable when they're young. It just really kind of takes harnessing that and kind of helping them sometimes. I know last year when they switched kind of to the dual language immersion, and I remember actually covering Emeritus class one day, and we were going through our morning, and we did most everything in Spanish, and then we came back after our lunch, and we were kind of starting to go through our English phonics lesson, and we were going through the alphabet, and they were saying all the letters in Spanish, and I was correcting them because we were going through them in English, and I was like, well, I can see how you can be super confused, because like I feel weird, kind of making that, but that's those synapses in their brain that are firing, and they're like, oh, well, why is this in the morning and now it's A, you know, but they just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is kind of how it works, and that's the basis that they get. That's kind of what they know, and so that's kind of how they move forward in that educational experience.
So before we do any questions, not to cut you off,
Yeah,
I just
no.
want to make sure we stay on time. Let's hear from our Chinese parents, and then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone in the space has for parents. I'm sure Chinese is going to echo quite a bit, but it's a little different language and a little different experience. So this is Sarah and Robin.
Yeah, so I have 4 kids. My oldest son is in 10th grade, then I have an 8th grader, a 5th grader, and a 2nd grader, sorry. When you have 4, it's hard to keep track. And they're all in the Chinese immersion program as well. So I really could echo everything that they said. My 10th grader did go on the capstone trip to China this summer, and he had an amazing time. They started off that trip in Juni, which is a city that has very, very few English speakers. So he was really thrown immediately into this situation where he had to speak Chinese to get around. And I kind of monitor his Snapchat, and as the days were going, I saw he was adding all these people that he was meeting on Snapchat. And he still keeps in touch with them and can't wait to go back and as well. And so that's been a really cool thing to see as older. So my husband and I decided on Chinese immersion. We are actually out of the 742 district, and we decided on this because we toured around a whole bunch of schools in our home district and here, and our home is a little bit different because my husband and I are already bilingual, but not in Chinese and not in Spanish. And so we were looking at the immersion program as an option for our child to learn a 3rd language. What we didn't realize is that our child was then going to be literate in English and Chinese and not so much our languages because we didn't have the time and the commitment to sit and teach them to read and write in the other languages that we knew initially. So our kids are more proficient in Chinese and English than they are our other languages that we speak, but that turned out to be phenomenal because Chinese, especially, they're using different parts of their brain. It's not it's a character language, so they're using that, and then in English, they're learning an alphabet language, and then in English, we don't use tones, but in Chinese, they are using tones. So they're using so much of their brain, and that was really important to us. So that was one of the decisions that we made. And also my husband is a political science professor who teaches international political economy. And one of the things that he really brought to the table with that is that at that time, our 10th grader going into kindergarten, China was a major emerging political and economic power, and that was going to be something that was going to be important in our world, and we needed our kid to be able to be a global citizen. For here in this country, any job that they have is probably going to relate in some way with China, and that we saw as a ladder for him to have that language skill that he could just go up so much faster. I say he because all my kids are boys, by the way, so I'm talking about them individually, but certainly that's how it was for us, and that was the decision that we made. And I remember the first time my oldest son used Chinese out in public. We were actually at the Science Museum, and we were in the elevator, and it was super crowded, and there was a family behind us that was speaking in Chinese to each other. And my son was, I think, 2nd or 3rd grade, and he just started speaking in Chinese to them. And I looked at him immediately like, what are you doing? And he said, what? They were trying to figure out which floor the dinosaurs were on. And so I said, okay, that works. And then the family looked over and looked at him, and here's this kid who's clearly not Chinese, and they just burst out laughing. And so I immediately, my face was red, like, what did he say? I was like so shocked, and they immediately said, no, it's just he speaks like he's Chinese. We are like so surprised. And so that was a super cool experience, and then we've had just experience after experience of that too. For Thanksgiving, we went to Connecticut, and I took my kids to a Chinese grocery store there, and at one point I lost my second grader, and he's a pretty quiet kid, so I started to freak out and turned around and realized he was in the back with the employees talking to them in Chinese. And so I immediately was like, Elias, get back here, what are you doing? But they were like, oh, no, it's okay. And they asked, like, have you lived in China? And we were like, no, he just goes to a Chinese school. And they were like, I don't know about that because his Chinese is really good. But yeah, that was kind of another cool experience just recently.
Awesome. Well, I'll kind of keep it short since we kind of, I'm
Sorry.
trying to keep time. No, it's good. There's so much to talk about when you have kids in immersion. There's always people asking you questions and why. And, you know, I would say as far as why for Chinese, when we were enlisting our kids in school, we were looking at all sorts of things. Of course, you want to build those opportunities for your kids as you're, you know, laying out their education. And, you know, when I was looking at District 742, I was a little bit worried when I saw the performance of Madison compared to some of the other schools in the district, just speaking honestly. And then, you know, I did kind of weigh the option between Spanish and Chinese. And I kind of thought in my heart, like I was kind of drawn to the Chinese language and culture, and was very interested because I considered studying there in college, and didn't do that maybe because of that little bit of that fear of, wow, such a different language, I'll be overwhelmed. So, you know, then when our oldest went into kindergarten, which now she is in 9th grade, and also went to China over the summer, you know, it was just a whole new world for all of us because we were all learning, and it kind of built a community that I didn't expect. And Madison as a school as a whole is just so beautiful, such an amazing community, and we've learned, or gotten to know so many families like so deeply, and I just feel so much more connected to school than I ever thought I would.
Any questions from the group for any of our parents? Anything that they didn't speak to that you're really wondering from a parent perspective about choosing immersion?
Laura talked about the open house days. I would highly encourage, if you get a chance, to go and tour, and if that is, you know, ideally during instruction time, because that's just a cool, unique opportunity to see. I mean, you get a sense of what's going on in the class. So, would, you know, highly encourage you if you get the chance to do that.
Well, let's thank our parents. And they'll be around.
And we have, I've got some cards in the back for our Clearview PTA. So if you've got questions that you think of, our email is on here. Feel free to, you know, email with anything that might come up that you feel like might be parent related.
And I just, one of the links that we had in our video of students speaking didn't come through correctly, so I just want to pull that up. This is very short, and we specifically did a Chinese video with our young students because we did want you to see how quickly they're able to do that. So it's hard to bring students in person. They get very nervous talking in front of all of the adults. So we were able to do some quick videos of our Chinese immersion students. And they're going to be all in Chinese, but Summer can briefly share with us what the students were talking about.
好，你叫什么名字？
我叫何纯，
你今年几岁？
我6岁，
你几年级？
我1年级，
你上什么学校？
南地学校上学。
你的家里有几个人？
我的家里有6个人，我有6个人，我有爸爸妈妈、奶奶、姐姐，
有2个姐姐。
2个姐姐和我。
对，非常好。
All right, Summer, do you want to tell us a little bit about what they were talking about?
So very basic conversation. Some of my kindergarten can do some of those questions as well. What's your name? What grade are you in? How many families? How many people in your family? So yeah, those are they're talking back and forth. So completely in Chinese, not English involved at all.
And those were first grade.
Yes,
graders,
first
right?
grade. Yes, first grade.
你会做什么？你会，
我会是倒地板，
你可以数给我们听吗？
1、2、3、4、5、6、7、8、9、10、11、12、13、14、15、16、17、18、19、20、2100。
非常好，谢谢你，杜子明。好。
Summer, what was happening there?
Counting. One of the things about Chinese numbers are exactly very patterned. So 1 to 10 is 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3. So science research does show that Chinese, if you speak Chinese, you have a better sense in place value because we have the 10. So that's why for kids, once they know 1 to 10, they can count all the way. So this year, after a week, I have one kid. I taught 1 to 10. Somehow he figured out the pattern. He's able to count all to 100. Dad showed me the videos. Oh my gosh, this is a very pattern. Once you figure that, math numbers are very, very easy in Chinese. Yeah. So they're counting by then. This is second grade.
我觉得中文帮助我去中国的话，我可以跟他们讲中文，也可以学不同的。
你可以和中国人交流，还会写字，非常好。罗言，
我觉得中文帮助我，因为我去中国，我可以与他们交流。
All right, Summer, what did we have there?
Why do you want to learn Chinese? Actually, in the video, one of the boys is Sarah's sons right there. So why do you want to go to China? One of the boys said, I want to go to China so I can talk to the people. And then one of the girls said the same thing. I want to go to China so I can talk to them. So, yeah.
So that brings us to the end. We wanted to save just a little bit of time in case you wanted to ask any questions in the whole group. We also have Crystal here. She is a first grade teacher at Westwood. So if you're thinking about Westwood and you have any specific questions about Spanish immersion there, we have Principal Boucher, who is under the sign. She is the principal of Madison. So if you have any kind of bigger questions about the school itself, she is a great resource. We have our parents here. We have our Welcome Center staff who do have the enrollment packets. If paper pencil is easier for you, you can grab those tonight. We have Laura here as well, who is Spanish speaking, so if you have any Spanish specific questions, your next step as parents is to get registered, get enrolled, maybe sign up for a tour, attend those open house nights. We also have enrollment available at the Welcome Center, so that address is here, the hours are here as well. Our website, you can easily just Google or type in the search bar Dual Language Immersion. That will get you right to our enrollment application, which is open and live, and that's your next step. Any parent questions from the group or the whole group that you'd like to make sure that we answer before we kind of let you mill around and connect with the folks here? Don't be shy. Yes.
With Westwood now adding the Spanish, what's the popularity been like? Are they filling classes or?
It's been very popular. Crystal, do you want to talk about Westwood Spanish?
We feel super happy. We started last year with kindergarten, and we expect just 2 groups, and then we have 3. So it's a really huge generation, and that generation now is mine. You know? I was working right there as an interventionist, so the kids were really happy knowing the language. As already said, it's much more than just learning a language. So we are increasing. So next year we will have 2nd grade. So now we have kindergarten, 1st graders, and next year we're gonna have 2nd grade. You know, and we're gonna keep growing.
So the district has a commitment to a new Spanish teacher like each grade as it gets older?
Yep. Yeah. So as the kids roll up, we'll continue to build that program up through 5th grade.
Okay, I know the Chinese program is very established. My sister has 3 kids in the Chinese program.
Yeah.
So I'm more familiar with that, but we live in Westwood, so I'm kind of leaning Spanish. But I would hate for it to suddenly fizzle out, when your kid's in 3rd grade. And
it's been very robust. So I mean, having 3 sections right off the bat is huge. That's a great healthy number that helps us to grow that program. The tricky thing about immersion is that you don't add a lot of new kids. So we really are always looking to have those big healthy numbers, and having 3 full classes our first year was a huge success. Yeah. Question here?
Follow up, if your enrollment has a cap, there for per grade. I mean, I know but as I mentioned before, I am new to the area, but my kids are in a different immersion, Chinese immersion in a different state. So I'm looking to move them because I'm just so passionate. I'm just like all the parents, like yes. So let's say a transfer, would you take kids that are in that, or are you capped? Say no, we cannot take more.
So for kids who move in, who have either been in an immersion program or who are native speakers, we do a quick assessment to just make sure that they're a good fit. If our classes are not full, we bring them in. And typically, as a district, we very rarely have our classes at max capacity. We're pretty committed to small class sizes in general. So we really try, if we're getting to those big numbers in 2 classes, to split those into 3. We do have to staff it, so that's why I always encourage parents to register early, because that helps us know our numbers and helps us to staff. Because as you can imagine, finding Chinese teachers in central Minnesota is not always the easiest thing, but we've got some great established Chinese teachers, and we're very fortunate, and our Spanish teacher population continues to grow. A lot of our interns go on to teach for us, which is an awesome experience too. Any other questions? Yeah.
What's the dropout rate as they get off, as they go through?
Oh, I don't know if I have it down. Ms. Boucher, we're also the principal at Clearview, so you can kind of speak to both. Do you typically see?
I would say we had more dropouts because families physically moved, like left the area versus left the program. So I would say we had very few. I've been an immersion administrator for 8 years now. And we have very few who opt out because they don't feel like it's a great fit. Sorry, I can't stand up. There are a few, 1 or 2, but I would say the majority of the time it's because the family is geographically relocated.
So what are the class sizes?
So class sizes, Summer, how many students do you have in kindergarten right now?
This year, I have 17.
17. Marita, what do you have?
23.
And Crystal in first grade?
25.
So about that 18 to 22 is kind of our target for kindergarten. But like I said, we do try to have those good healthy numbers, because if a family does move away, right, we don't often replace that family in 4th grade because students really need that background.
Yes.
And I think that is a unique piece about the immersion programs as well too, is that because of where they're located and because they're pulling families from kind of all over the district, now with both the immersion program at Westwood and Clearview, you've kind of got 2 different spots there, but you're pulling people really kind of from all over, and then from out of district as well too, and so you kind of really have this concerted effort to build that community piece around making sure that those families connect, because it might not be your geographic school that you are going to, so kind of getting involved with some of those things, and just kind of making sure that you're making those connections across. So I think that geographic piece, a lot of times, Clearview, a lot of kids kind of from Monticello, Becker, Big Lake, and then, once middle school comes, it just might not be feasible for them to get to South. So
you still are accepting out of district open enrollment, and that's not any, I work in district, and so there's been some rumblings that we live in Sauk Rapids and we look to enroll in immersion, but that's not going to change.
The plan is not for that to change.
Okay, good.
We'd love
We have
to.
been enrolled.
Anything else?
And they don't have to have prior.
No prior Chinese or Spanish. Some students do, and as we have more and more Spanish speakers in the area, that's been another very cool benefit of our Spanish programs, is we're seeing more native speakers, and so I would say maybe 5-7 years ago we didn't see as many native Spanish speakers, but now kids are in a classroom with kids who are very confident they speak Spanish at home, and that only increases our programming, and we see that in Chinese as well. We sometimes do have Chinese native speakers who are in, not as many as Spanish, but that if your child isn't coming with experience, it's okay, because they're learning together, and then those students who are the native Spanish speakers or Chinese speakers really add to the program, make it more robust, and it's just kind of a cool thing to see.
Yeah, I'll say that my kids refer to the other classrooms in their school that are in English as English immersion, and their Chinese classes as Chinese immersion, and they really have no clue that the kids in English immersion are mostly speaking English at home and not necessarily learning a new language. They think that's just the way school is. And some of the kids in their classroom speak Chinese at home, and most don't, and they think the same thing about the English immersion program, the English classes in their school as well.
Well, feel free to check in with anyone here. Questions for teachers, for myself, for principal friends. Grab a packet for enrollment on your way out, and we're really thankful that you're considering immersion. We hope that you registered today. You won't regret it. It's an amazing experience that will change your kids' life. Thank you.